I like trail running. The British team's really strong. I've tried to get on the British team before and I haven't been able to. If I have the perfect training season and I have the perfect race, there's a chance I can win. My mum could coach Hayden Hawks and he would still get very good results. He might not get like the big results, right? But he would still be quite fast. And you'd be like, oh, Robbie's mum's coach. So no, Hayden's just very fast.
Hey, Robbie Britton. I hope I pronounced it right. Did I?
Yeah, you did. I have to say your name and I'll probably get it wrong, wouldn't I?
Yeah, if you're gonna spell my name, you're 100% gonna get it wrong. It's not English friendly. You're British, but you're living in Italy, right?
Yes, yes. Live in northern Italy, in a small town called Codula, which is in like the foothills of the Alps.
So actually, you're pretty close to Slovenia.
We're close enough that we visited a couple of times. I love the country, so like it's it's not too far away.
And what I notice also is that you are running for a very long time. That means you have lots of experiences, and I also imagine that you did lots of dumb stuff also at the beginning.
Yeah, no,
I am at sorry.
I've been running running ultras for 15 years now. The first one was 2009, and I've made a lot of mistakes over the years, and every now and again I still make some now because it's part of challenging yourself. You have to, if you do want to challenge yourself, you do want to learn, you can't be afraid of making mistakes.
What do you think is your biggest challenge at this moment at your stage?
At my stage, after 15 years,
What are you scared the most?
I think some people they lose their enjoyment a little bit and they plateau. I don't think I'm doing that. I still feel there are ways for me to improve. I still absolutely love the sport. I love learning about the sport. So I don't think there's the normal issues for me that people have after 15 years within the sport. I don't really struggle with. I have one right leg that's my right knee is never that happy. That's probably my own, because it's a physical thing. My right knee is probably my biggest opponent at times. But actually, like in terms of improving as an athlete, enjoying the sport, like loving the training, it's still all there. It's still really high level for me.
Let's just jump into right knee because I have myself some problems with my right knee also. Um, do you have like pain all the time when you run, or just until you warm up? And how do you deal with it?
So before I ran, I played soccer, and I wouldn't normally call it soccer. I'd say football because I'm English, but I also played American football, and I tore my knee cartilage at 18, returning a punt. I was looking up in the sky, catch a ball, and two people hit me at the same time, and it destroyed my knee. So I had my first knee surgery at like 21, and then I had a second one on the same knee after a fall in the mountains in 2016. So it's like I have a yeah, it's good, but sometimes it's bad. It's never perfect, I suppose, but it's hard for it to expect it to be perfect because it's a knee that's been through a lot. But like earlier this year, I was training, easily hitting 200 kilometers a week, 15 hours of training, happy in the long runs. I've run a 100K, I've run a 100 miler this year, and the knee's not been a problem. So it's like sometimes it's a bit uncomfortable. Sometimes I have to just be wary of it, but it really just responds differently at times because it's a knee that's a bit battered. So I have to look after it. I do a lot of strength work around it to try and make sure that there's as little pressure on that knee as possible.
So you also go to gym to do with weights, or you do it with elastic bands, or with only with body weight?
All of it. So where we are in Codula, we bought an old building that's quite big, and there's a separate building next to it which we've put a gym into. So we've got about 70 meters squared. We've got lifting platform. We've only got 140 kilos on the barbell. So someone who actually lifts would be like, that's nothing. But for an endurance runner, that's enough. Got a full set of kettlebells, weights, bands, different equipment in there. I built a Nordic hamstring curl machine recently from like old wooden pallets. That's my pride and joy at the moment. That's been really good for like just kind of strengthening the legs. So yeah, we've got a pretty good gym space here that's built into the house.
You build the hamstring machine yourself.
Yeah, I'll send you a video afterwards. It's pretty good. I was really pleased with myself. The pallet it did help a lot, but I kind of put the foam and the something to hold the legs, because otherwise you need someone to hold your legs. And like if I don't want to have to get my wife to come down every time, like I need to do this workout. So it's all set up.
You said also before that you run 200 kilometers per week.
In a big week, yeah. And it depends on the event. So like it's not just a number I'll try and aim for. If I'm running in the mountains, then obviously that number's lower. I do a lot of things by time, and I think time's a good way to measure your training, because it takes into account if it's hilly, if it's cold, if it's snowed, if you're tired, if there's a headwind the whole time. And it also means if you train in slightly different ways, it takes that into account as well. Like if you go out, so today we were on the bicycle. So when I did a gravel ride, and that's 4 hours of training, like it's not the same as a 4-hour run, but I know I'm getting 4 hours of training in, so I respect it for what it is. When I'm training for the 100K or the 24 hours, it's my specialty is the 24-hour. And it's primarily flat. It's where we live is not super flat, but like there may only be a couple thousand meters over the 200K. So that's pretty flat. It's about 15 hours of training. Real mixture of kind of good quality and nothing too long.
Do you maybe know how many kilometers you ran this year?
This year, I can look on Strava. I was actually shocked the other day. I can have a quick peek. This year so far, I think it's been a decent sized year. It's probably not maybe my biggest. I'm not sure. I've had some years where I was cycling primarily, and there was a lot. That was obviously, they were big years. So far this year, I have run, it's in miles, 3,500 miles with about 100,000 meters of elevation.
100,000 meters of elevation and 3,500 weight, 3,500 at 1.6. That's like almost 6,000 kilometers, 5,600 kilometers.
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
crazy.
And then there's a bit on the bike as well this year, not too much, but an extra 100 hours on the bike. So like another 2,500 kilometers on the bike.
So we could actually say in your whole life, okay, if you're running ultra marathons for 15 years, meaning you were running also before, we could actually say you're running in your whole life like 1 million kilometers.
I don't know. My volume has built up over the years. So like when I started out, the volume was definitely less. But like now, like if I'm training for the 100K or the 24-hour, I know I'm going to get a good few weeks where it's 180 to 200K. Right? Like there might be 5-6 weeks up at that level. My body's comfortable with it, and like I really enjoy it when it's going well, and it doesn't even feel hard. Like it's weird. It doesn't feel like you're stretching if you've done it right. But like I imagine when I first did a 100-mile week, must have been back in like 10 plus years ago, and it was like one of them, and I was like, 100-mile week, brilliant, 160K. But like now, yeah, like it's all relative, and if you build up gradually, and if you're in terms of time, it break it up nicely. Like if you're doing a couple hours a day, that might be 1 hour in the morning, 1 hour in the evening, or 90 minutes in the morning and 30 minutes in the afternoon. And then in one long run there's 2.5 hours, but you're already getting close to 14, 15 hours there. So you can see how it builds up if you're training consistently, you're training intelligently, and not like pushing yourself too hard.
So actually it's more important not how many kilometers you ran, but actually how many hours you're on the feet. Because definitely if you make some uphill intervals, it's not going to be many kilometers, but the work is going to be huge.
Yeah, and even so, like here where we are in northern Italy, the trails are rough. Like there's a lot of loose rocks, loose leaves. So like it's just not the same. Like if I do a 10-minute uphill effort on the road, I'm going to go quite far. If I do it uphill on the trail, I'm not going to go very far at all. And I'm not going to go downhill quick either, because it's rough. So it's the technicality of the trail or the surface can come into it as well.
This year, you went to USA.
Mm-hmm.
you went to run one very legendary ultra trail, Leadville, and you were on the 6th place overall. From over 400 runners, you were on the 6th place at the end. When we started at the beginning, how was your preparing? How was your training looking like for this Leadville? Because I know the specialty is that is the whole 100 miles is altitude over 3,000 meters.
Yes. Yeah, it was good. I did a lot because, so my main goal over the next 2 years is the 2025 24-hour world champs. So one of the reasons I picked Leadville is because I could still do a lot of running in training. It wasn't a race that involved a lot of hiking. Like if I'd have done a UTMB or something like more mountainous, you have to adapt your training. You have to, and your body changes and you become strong in some ways, but it impacts your efficiency, like when you're running the longer stuff. So like Leadville, my training had a lot of running in there. We used the road climbs here because they were very similar to most of the climbs in Leadville. It's about 4,000 meters of elevation change, but a lot of that comes in one up and down. You go up to Hope Pass, which is at 3,800 meters, and you go up one side, and that I ran and jogged most of that, and then the other side is steeper. And on the way back, I felt the altitude and heat a little bit, but for most of it, you can run. So a lot of my training it wasn't too dissimilar to the 100. Obviously, it was more focused going uphill. A lot of my workouts involved climbs. We did a really cool 4x20 minutes one here on the road, and we climbed about 900 meters, maybe even more than that, about 1,000 meters of climbing. And at the end of the session, we're like, brilliant, right, we're done. And we realized we had to run like 15K to get home because it was like we were so far away on the road. So it ended up being this huge session, but like it was really enjoyable because the roads here are probably a similar steepness to a lot of the climbing that I was going to face in Leadville. So, and the roads here are beautiful to run on. They're really quiet. I really enjoy where I live. And we have a 600 meter road climb on one side, 1,000 meters on the other. So like in terms of getting the hills in, we're making sure that, say like we did a 20K run, there was a similar amount of elevation to what was in the Leadville course. And the Leadville has a lot of runnable sections. And I wasn't particularly worried about that because I ran 6:48 for 100K in Sweden early in the year. So I knew I was coming in with good leg speed. Even in that race, I think I was potentially able to run a bit faster, and I just slowed at the end. But the 50 mile was 5 hours, 14 minutes. So I knew I had the leg speed. And it was just making sure that I was adapted for the altitude. So for altitude, especially at 3,000 meters, to acclimate beforehand, you probably want like 3 weeks as a minimum to kind of get used to it. I didn't want to spend too long away from home. So I went with my wife and our 2 dogs to Teens in France, which is around 2,100 meters, for 8 days before we went to America. So it's really nice to train there. A few of my athletes were training there as well. So I got to spend time with some of my athletes. And from there, I traveled out to Leadville itself and stayed at the In the Clouds hostel with a bunch of other people some were doing, the first week there was a lot of cyclists doing the 100-mile Leadville mountain bike race. And then there was runners as well. So it was a really nice community. The hostel was really lovely. And it was at 3,200 meters. So you're like sitting there, like having your morning coffee and you're thinking, I am at 3,200 meters drinking a coffee. It was crazy. So yeah, and I got out there 2 weeks before the race. So I was out there with my sponsor, Precision Fuel and Hydration, and they come out to do the crewing as well. So I had a really good team out there to support me. And yeah, it was a cool race. Like the history is really cool. I remember seeing a lot of the races when I got into ultra running. You saw Anton Gorpichka, you saw Matt Carpenter's record, which was broken this year by David Roach. There's some really cool history to the race, and it was it's my first American 100-miler that I've raced, and I really like the buckle. I'm not one for medals, but obviously we've got a few over the years. I've got some I can see here that are from the world champs and stuff, and they matter to me. But the finishers medal, I'm never too fussed about. But the buckle was so shiny. It was I almost I don't even own a belt, so I have to find a belt probably to put this giant buckle. It would look really bigger than my face. But at the start, you're at the start and they start with a shotgun, and I only realized about 5 seconds beforehand that I was stood next to the shotgun. It's well, this is okay. Adrenaline's going to go. But yeah, the checkpoints were full of people cheering, and It's just, yeah, the country's so massive. Like it's just wild. So it was really nice to be out there and see that. And I met a lot of really cool people out at Leadville.
How does it look to race Leadville? First is, do you also have to come in the lottery and you have to be lucky enough to get picked? Or how does it look?
So,
How is the process even to run the Leadville?
so for me, I was fortunate that Precision had a sponsor space. So I didn't go through the lottery. There is a lottery. And there are also, because Lifetime Fitness own the race now, and they're a gym company in the US. I think there's special lotteries for volunteers, there's special lotteries for people that have lifetime gym memberships. And then some of the people, if you can do like the lead man, which gets you in, you do a bunch of the races. So like those guys were racing as well, and that gets you automatically in. And there's a few others. I think one guy, he had to do the 50-mile run race, the marathon, the 10K, and the mountain bike race, and then you automatically get in if you do all the races. But the mountain bike race, he just started and then he just stopped. He did like 1 mile on a road bike and was like, yeah, no, I had to come back. I just wanted to get into the race. So there are ways around it, but obviously expensive ways around it. But yeah, so I was fortunate that I had a sponsor spot through Precision. Really grateful for that. But the lottery, it isn't as oversubscribed as some of the other ones because they've got a big start field there as well. So it's a pretty cool. There's a lot of great races out there, but like it was one that I'd been on my radar for many years.
How is the weather there? Is it at the time when the Leadville is going? Is it hot, humid, cold, windy?
It was very dry.
Snowy?
It wasn't humid at all. So the race started at 4 a.m. So that was really cold. And people said to me, you've got to make sure you're warm in the morning. And I know I'm good in the cold. So I was like, everyone's in like big black gloves and warm, and I'm there in just a singlet. And I was like, I don't need gloves. I'll be fine. And it was a bit like it was below zero, but like not too bad because you're running. And you drop down. So like you go up this rolling road out of town and you drop onto like a dirt road. And it goes all the way along there for quite a while. And you're chatting away with other athletes. And then you get around this big lake. So you do like, I think it's 12K around the lake. And that's cold. That's in the morning. As soon as the sun was up, it was quite nice. It got quite warm in the second half. Coming back up Hope Pass, I felt the heat. And normally that heat stays around for all afternoon. So actually, it's one of the things that slows people down. But this time it clouded over quite quickly. So it wasn't too hot. I think it went up into the high 20s, but it dropped back down to below 20. And it wasn't really, we were on it. I had ice bandanas. I was cooling myself down. Like I was really kind of focused on not overheating. But at the end of the day, it wasn't that hot. The altitude was the biggest problem. But yeah, in terms of the heat, it wasn't too bad.
Do you use like hydration vest, sticks, or you only have the belt? What do you take with you, considering nutrition, water, and these things?
Yeah, Leadville, I used 2 handheld bottles at the start, so I could put a good amount there, and I had shorts with some pockets and a race belt. So like I don't like running with a vest too often. I'd rather run with the handhelds. I didn't use poles. I wanted to run as much as the climb as I could. I don't train with poles. Like if I'm going to use poles in a race, I like to do a lot of training with them first. I feel like we have to. We neglect training our arms. We think we can just pick up the poles and okay, we might have the cardiovascular ability to use them, but our arms aren't trained like our legs are. And then suddenly you want to use them at like 10,000 times in a race. So like in the past, I've done cross-country skiing and ski mountaineering, and come on, if I do that over the winter, then I'm very strong with poles. My technique's quite good, but it's worth practicing. I see a lot of people where their technique isn't just too strong as well. And one of the things I get people to imagine is if you had wheels on your feet, if you're in roller skates, would the poles help? And if it's a no, then you need to work on that technique. You have to be able to pull yourself forward as well. But there's lots of good technique videos out there. And so you get crew. So I had a drop bag at 21K. And I got there, it was brilliant. You got there and it said to everyone, make sure you only use a clear plastic bag with your number in. And normally when you go to a checkpoint, the people have got there first and they've organized the numbers into order. And I arrived there with the lead, like not quite with the lead group, but like I think I was 10th or 11th. And I was like, Robbie Britton. And I said my number and they're like, okay, what does your bag look like? So it's a clear plastic bag, like every single other one. And I think there were 600 bags there. And luckily I could see, like, it was really near the guy's foot. I was like, that one. But like, apparently everyone else, they were just like, yeah, no, they're just in no order. Just guess. And all the bags were identical. So that was fun. And then, yeah, the crew can be there for quite a few bits. And then after 62 miles, so 100K in, you can have a pacer. And one of the things that's different with Leadville is your pacer can mule for you. They can carry stuff for you. So I had Don Reichert and Andy Blow at Precision Hydration. So Dom's a precision athlete, and he's one of the owners of the company. And they took turns and paced me along the way. So it was really great to have those guys helping out because they could carry the gels. So I only had like one bottle. So for the last 40 miles, I was just kind of, someone else was carrying food for me, which was brilliant. And the first half, I planned it all out beforehand, and we just had it set up so that I was carrying the minimum I needed, because the race nutrition was Precision Hydration sponsored as well. So I knew that the gels that I like were at the checkpoints. So it worked out really well for me.
That's cool. And how much carbs per hour did you take? Did you also take some salt pills, and how much fluid? And was it only water, or was it isotonic?
I think it was a little bit lower than I'd usually. So like over the 100K, I think I was closer to like 100 closer to 100. But actually, athlete K-stars, if I find my thing on here, running, it was around 80, I think, for this one. It wasn't as high as previously. I had some stomach issues in the second half, and that just slowed it down a little bit. It was a bit frustrating, but sometimes that's what happens and you have to just deal with it on the way. So it wasn't as high as I have had in the past, but I've got the exact numbers here that I can give you, because we go through it with Precision Hydration afterwards each time. I might have to find it in a bit. Where's it gone? It should be in date order.
And with the fluids, you only drink water, or you drink?
So I drink the Precision Hydration 30-gram drink mix, which has got 30 grams of carbs in, and each one is about 1,000 milligrams of sodium per litre. And that's kind of what I need as an athlete. So I know that my sweat sodiums, I lose about 1,100 milligrams of sodium per litre of sweat. So if I make sure the drink coming in is the same concentration as what I'm sweating out and what I'm losing, as long as I stay hydrated, then I should be in a good place to kind of keep myself like competent with the with my, where's my recent cut? I got it here. So 100 when I was at the 80K, I averaged 110 grams of carbs an hour the whole way through that. 24 hours, I'm 90 to 100, but at Leadville it was 84 grams of carbs per hour. Sodium was around 800 milligrams per litre, because I had some water in the second half, and I was getting half a litre an hour. So I was trying to get more than that. From about 70 miles in, like 120, 130 kilometers, my stomach stopped working, just shut down. And I think I did have a painkiller that was about my knee. And actually the knee wasn't that bad, but I was worried about it. And I think that's what shut my knee down and shut my stomach down, which is a mistake I made, because I'm still making mistakes. And I think it's just, I got a little worried about the knee becoming a problem. It wasn't. I did something that in hindsight, I wish I hadn't, but hindsight's a wonderful thing. So my stomach was bloated, and the liquid, so I stopped taking liquid in. So I was getting my 90 grams of gel in per hour using the Precision Hydration 90-gram gels, because they're 1 pouch, and I'd probably do a big swig and take 60 grams of carbs in one go. And then I knew that for the rest of that hour, I just had to finish that packet. So I'd just take a little bit more a couple of times. But I couldn't drink anything because it was just sitting in my stomach. So my fluid intake was down at 500 milliliters. It was aimed to be about 750. So like it just tailed off in the second half. And I was aiming to get like 95 to 105 grams of carbs an hour. So that just slowed down a little bit because I lost the carbs I was getting from hydration. But it wasn't too bad. I finished strong. Like I was still catching people towards the end. I think maybe if I'd have had a perfect day, I might have been an hour quicker. But the three guys at the front were so far ahead. I think my best result on the day might have been fourth if I'd had a better section towards the end. But I was happy. I was not happy with I was unhappy that I'd made a mistake, but I was happy with how I battled through it and and kind of made the best of the situation.
And at what time of the race do you start adding carbs? You start using gels?
On
Is
the
it
start,
already on the start? On the start?
yeah, on the start line, I take one paying 10, 15 minutes beforehand, and then the first hour I'm taking. One of the reasons being is that so when you've carb loaded and you've got your muscle glycogen stores full, your body's going to use that first and foremost. So we can't spare that, but you also store some glycogen in your liver. So we're hoping that by taking on the amounts that you're taking in the first couple of hours, that you're going to spare some of that liver glycogen for the latter stages of the race. But equally as well, if you put it in, you're burning it, you're just not going to end up. You're going to keep as much back as you can, and then you're going to be running on that the whole way through. So like I might. I work with another athlete, a coach, but he's a coach I work with as well, called Dr. Jamie Pugh, and his specialty is the gut. So we actually do a lot of talking. He's worked with Hayden as well in the past. Hayden come over to Liverpool. We did some testing in the laboratory there at Liverpool John Moores University, and we do experiment with stuff like around the gut and like the timing of it. Should we be eating from the start? But so far, I'll have something beforehand, like 10, 15 minutes beforehand, and the first hour I'm eating and drinking. I might drink a little less in the first couple of hours because I find like I'm reasonably well hydrated at the start, and I don't want to. I wee a lot more, so I don't want to be stopping for too many wees.
Do you also take any caffeine, or no?
Yes, yeah. So like I took about 100 milligrams of caffeine. I had a coffee in the morning, so like I think it was like 2:30 in the morning, so an hour and a half before, and I had chewing gum with 100 milligrams of caffeine in before the start, and then over the course of this one, I probably topped it up with another 100 milligrams every 3 hours. So I'm not looking to overload the system. Like we just kind of trying to keep the numbers up and just trickling along as we go. When I'm racing a 24-hour, normally in the past it's been more targeted around times that I know that I might feel sleepy. But like at Leadville, I knew sleep wouldn't be a problem because I wasn't out for the night. I was out at the start of the morning, and I was going to be finished that evening. So it was more around like improving performance and helping perception of effort. With the 24 hours, it is that, but also I try and increase my caffeine around like my normal bedtime and the small hours of the night if I am feeling drowsy, in the hope that it gives me a little bit of a boost in that regard.
And do you take it in a form of pill or caffeinated gel? Or
the Health Span Elite caffeinated gums because they're batch tested. So like no one's tested me in about 6 years, but if that because I compete at the 24-hour world champs and I'm a reserve for the British team for the 100k world champs, I make sure that the products I use are batch tested. So all the precision products are batch tested. The protein powder I have at home is batch tested, and the chewing gums, they're batch tested, just in case there's a cross-contamination of a supplement. No one's tested me in 6 years, so it seems ridiculous to pay extra money for all that. But I know I'm confident as an athlete and as a coach that I'm doing what I would advise others to do if there's a chance they'll be tested.
Because you're also second in the British 24 hours, you ran 277 kilometers. I guess this was flat.
Yes, it was flat. It was in a park in Turin in Italy.
So you were like running circles or
1 kilometer loops, that one.
How?
1 kilometer.
1 kilometer?
Yeah.
Okay, how hard is that? That's like 277 laps of same.
It's hard. I think it's the hardest thing you can do. Physically, it's difficult because it's tarmac and it's repetitive. But mentally, for me, it's the hardest discipline. And the reason being is that it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you're going fast, if you're going slow, if you're sitting down, if you're sprinting. The clock goes at the same pace. So you can't work harder to get to the finish quicker. And it messes with people's head. Like if you're like the Leadville, when I had a tough time, I kept walking and I knew I was getting close to the finish. In a 24-hour, when it's hard and you just want to stop and you want to sit down or you want to cry, it doesn't matter. The clock just keeps ticking, tick, tick, tick. And all you do is just making your finishing distance smaller. So I love it because those moments are like, there's always tough moments and it's always hard. Like you never finish a 24-hour race. You might feel good about your performance, but your body's always broken. You don't finish a 24-hour race and go, you know what, I fancy doing tomorrow? More running. No, the day after, like if you walk down to breakfast, that's a success. So and like everyone, we come back from like last year, we was in Taiwan for the World Champs, and the buses were like really busy to get us back to the hotel after the race. So two of us walked back, and it was a mile. I think it was about 1.5 miles, 2 kilometers. And my friend filmed us because he looked like two little old men, just kind of like, there were steps. We've been running for 24 hours, and we still got back quicker than the bus because there was too much traffic. But like, 24-hour races, even if it goes perfect, you start the race and you can be the fittest you've ever been, right? And I have been at the start. And you're like, I've never been fitter than this. I'm an elite, I'm a world-class athlete. And at the end of the race, you're broken. You couldn't run for the bus. You couldn't run 5K. So it's weird. There's no other sport, I don't think, where you're broke. You start at the top level and you finish. If it goes well, if everything's perfect, you're broke.
So you would say this 24-hour race would be harder than, let's say, I don't know, UTMB, which is approximately 24 hours for elite, not for the win, but for top 50.
The 24 hours is harder than UTMB. I've done UTMB 2.5 times. I've got to 130 kilometers and stopped once because I wasn't having fun. I'm still fine. I don't know why I stopped it.
Even though that in 24 hours, there is like no elevation.
No elevation. Yeah, because there's no change. With the UTMB, right, you come out of Chamonix, right, and you run to Les Houches, and it's lovely. There's no, that bit doesn't count because you just buzz the crowds. And then you hike up a hill, right? So you change what you're doing. And you get to the top and you run down and that's low energy. And then you go up to La Contamine and you're running a bit there, but then you get to the next climb and Notre Dame de la Gorge and you get to hike. And you use your arms and you use your legs differently. And then you see a lovely view, like the crowds are brilliant, and then you drop down and then the sun comes up when you're in Courmayeur or when you're past Courmayeur, and you run, you hike, you get the downhills, all this stuff. Your body moves in different planes, you jump around things. The 24 hours, you do the same thing again and again and again in a circle, and you use the same muscles and the same bones get hit in the same way every single step. Nothing changes for the whole 24 hours. So like if you've got one sore spot or like one little problem with a little toe, it happens the same time every single time. There's no relief. You don't have a hill to hike up, or you don't have an easy bit where you're going downhill. You might do some running and walking. Some people put that in there to mix things up. But if you want to go a long way, you've got to do a lot of running.
I don't want to experience this.
It's good. But like it makes
sounds hard.
If you try the 24-hour, you come back to the 100 miles. The 100 miles feels easy because you're like, okay. And I'm not saying it's not hard to run 100 miles. It's very hard still. And physically, it's a different challenge. Like the downhill of a UTMB can damage the body depending on your technique, can damage the body as well. But mentally, I think it's if you can stop or you can walk for a bit and still progress and make good progress, then it's nice because mentally you give yourself a bit of a break. Whereas if you're running and the second you slow a little bit, you're reducing your total.
So 24 hours, after 24 hours run, the recovery is longer?
Yeah. Normally, yeah. There's a race called Slow 12, which is a 12-hour race in Slovenia, which is a really good time race. You don't have to do 24 to experience the format. They've had like world-class athletes come to the race there as well. So like, there's a good 24-hour scene in Slovenia as well.
Nice. And what do you do for the recovery?
I think it's important to move. And I don't mean go out and run or like ride your bike, even just to walk, to go out with family or to get in a pool and swim or to use the stairs more than you usually might. Like, I think it's important to move. You have to respect your body, have to give it the time to recover, and you might need time off running. You might need time off exercise, but I think movement's good for it. So if you just lay there still, I don't think that helps. Sometimes it's necessary, and there's a few days you just sit down, but even in those days, bits of movement will help. And it's different for everyone. Recovery can be different for other people, but I think movement is healthy for recovery.
Do you do any steam room or cold plunges or something like this? I guess massage is out of the question.
there's a grace period for massage. For a few days, no one's touching my legs. That's a rule. They would be like, stop doing that. We have a sauna here at the house. It's quite. I use that. I feel that's nice for recovery. I use it for training, for heat acclimation as well. Like if you look at the science around stuff like cold pools, there's not a lot that shows it will help recovery. It might reduce inflammation, but at that point, you probably need that inflammation to help your body recover. But what I do say is if you enjoy it and you find it helps, then I don't feel there's a problem with it. Like if you say you're recovering for a race and then walking to the local river or going to a cold pool and jumping in, actually it might be the walk that's providing the biggest benefit to your recovery, rather than the cold pool itself. But if it's good for your mind, if it's good for your the whole activity, I think it's still a place for it. But I wouldn't specifically use like a cold pool. I might use heat and cold together. So like I might go hot, cold, hot, cold. The idea being there that you're just flushing the blood through the body a little bit more because you'll vasodilate and the blood will come out to your surface when you're too hot. And then when you get in the cold pool, it's going to go back in. And I imagine it's just like like a harpsichord. It's kind of flushing in and out. But yeah, like I think if you enjoy stuff, like if you go to the sauna and what would you be doing instead? If the other thing you'd be doing is sat driving or sat down doing nothing, then maybe it's a nice alternative. Or if it stops you going out for a run and you need to recover, then yeah, like the bicycle can be good for that, for recovery. Like really light bicycle, like work as well. I think it's good. But
if you go on the bicycle and you maybe drive over the rock, I think it would be pretty easy that you would come a bit bloody back home.
Like you don't want to crash on the bike. You can use the bike indoors. You also get the heat benefit. But we did some gravel riding today, and I only fell off twice, which is a good thing. But it was like I fell off when we were in mud. So like I slowed to a stop, and I just kind of went to one side. So it wasn't a bad fall. But yeah, like you don't want to. It depends on like if you're a professional athlete and you have a contract that says you can't hurt yourself, then yeah, you have to be smart about it. If you're enjoying it, you're doing this for enjoyment. Like today, my heart rate was low, but I felt like my body and my mind got a hard workout because we're bouncing over lots of things. I've got one blister on my hand, like my finger, like just here. But like in terms of, yeah, it didn't feel like a hard stress on the body.
What was your average heart rate, if you know, like in the 24-hour race or in the Leadville? Is it different or is quite the same, the average?
Different. And especially with something like Leadville, you see a lot of variation up and down. So my average heart rate for Leadville for 17 hours, 56 minutes was 141 beats a minute. And that it dropped off in the second half. Like, so from when my stomach went, like from about 10.5 hours in, it dropped down. But like at the start, I was kind of mid 140s. Descending, it would drop down again to like low 140s. And then, yeah, mid to high 140s in the first half. It peaked at around 160, going up, hope past the first time. I got really excited going up there. It dropped down again, coming down. And one of the things I look for, if you are looking at heart rate, is to make sure that it goes up. It goes up when you're working hard, but you want to make sure it drops when you're descending. It shows you kind of recovering a little bit. And then, yeah, in the final third, it kind of eased off a bit. And then for the 24-hour, I have to find it. If I got it, take me 2 secs. I got one for the record. My heart rate average was, and in this one, it was quite humid at the start, so it went higher. I know from memory it was around high 140s in the first 6 hours. Yeah, high 140s the first 6 hours, but over the 24 hours, it averaged 135. With a peak of 150. But
how old are you exactly?
Me, I'm 37.
37. So actually, you are truly an elite runner. You have such a spread very low for Leadville and for like such a race that the average is like 140. Do you maybe also know what is your Vo2 Max?
My Vo2 Max. So we tested. So like, it's weird. The last time we did anything like a Vo2 Max test, I was cycling more, so I had a higher I feel I was uneconomical, but I had high. So like it was like 5.5 liters of oxygen a minute. So it was kind of low 80s, based on the weight then. But in the intervening time, I think my VO2 max has dropped. But I've become more economical. So like my running economy is really good. So when I'm running on a flat surface, and your running economy is the milliliters of oxygen per kilometer per kilogram body weight. So like how much oxygen do you use to cover a kilometer? And when I had a higher VO2 max, was bringing a lot of oxygen in. When I was doing more cycling, I was coming back from an injury, a little bit less running, but I was still running fast. But the longer I went, there was a very high cost to that. My economy was over 200, and it's in the low, like the 160, 170 for my race paces, and that's a better number for me as a 24-hour runner, because having a high VO2 max is a nice number to show people, but we don't often reach it or go anywhere near it. Like how often as an ultra runner, you're not thinking, oh, I wish I had more oxygen right now. You're thinking like, I wish I'd burn less energy. I wish I was more economical. I wish I had more like carbohydrates coming in. So VO2 max it's an interesting number. I know I know it's pretty high. We've measured it, in the low 80s. And my weight's dropped since then, but I think my VO2 max would have dropped as well. So it wouldn't have been a straight like weight going down, VO2 max going up, because I think my overall power has dropped. I know it has on the bike because I'm doing less cycling, so the muscles have got a bit smaller, using a bit less oxygen, but more economically.
That's a very nice point that you make here. Yeah, like you said, VO2 max is a nice number, but yeah, for ultra running, trail runners, it doesn't help actually a lot.
What did they say? Jonas Vingegaard had a 97 VO2 max. Didn't help him at the Tour de France, did it?
True. True. Do you know what was your average pace in Leadville?
In Leadville, I've got it here. Like I can show you.
So you have all the data. So
yeah, I got 10:44 a mile, but like the first, I mean, it was 6. So I was in K's. Yeah, so that's like. Yeah. So the grade adjusted was 9:30, which is around in K's would be 6, just under 6-minute K's, like 5:30 K's, 5:45 K's.
For 100 mile, that's crazy.
Yeah, whereas the 24-hour, it was 8 minutes, so 5-minute K's the whole way.
5-minute K's for 24 hours.
Yeah.
Whoa.
It was flat.
That's hey, but you ran the whole 24 hours in the same shoe, right? You don't change clothes, you don't change shoes.
No, nothing. I didn't stop. I stopped for, I want to say 11 minutes. I can check though.
You go to pee, to toilet?
10 and a half minutes I stopped. So that was 2 visits to the toilet. And one time I stopped to do stretches to just kind of increase the range of because you shuffle, you don't really change much. So we did this stretch where it's assisted and I just get lowered into a squat and brought up again, just to increase the range of movement around my quads and my hamstrings a little bit. Just because you're just shuffling in the same style, same shoes. And yeah, so 11 minutes over the course of it, was two toilet stops, one wee, and then I did wee on the move a little bit.
For example, when you go on the trail running, which shoes do you use?
To Leadville, I took...
also can be in Italy or in France or more in Europe.
On the trail. So like I took Nike Alpha Flies on the Leadville for a lot of the race, but it wasn't that technical. There was some road, and the trails that for the most of it, before you get to Hope Pass, they aren't that technical. So I went out and tested it. I was comfortable with that. And in the more technical section, I wore a Hoka Speedgo. I like the Hoka Speedgo. Good cushioning, feels like a fast shoe. I've used the Mafati. I've used a little bit the Adidas, their new super shoe. I've tried that out. But yeah, a real mixture. It depends on the race I'm doing. But like I do like the Hoka, the Speedgo, and the Mafati for they're good, comfortable shoes. The grip's good. You kind of know what you're getting. They're a little bit heavier, but I think the cushioning helps the longer the race goes on. So although lightweight's nice, you get more a better performance with a good cushioned shoe. And then I've got a whole load of different shoes in the other room here. Lots of road shoes.
Do you have some secret tips and tricks considering clothing, shoes, socks, I don't know, underwear or
I
I don't
got
know, powder
so I
for like 400 milers.
so I actually had I wrote a book called 1001 Running Tips, the Essential Runner's Guide, and in there are sections on stuff like clothing. There's loads of different tips in there. The main thing for 100-mile racing is to make sure it's comfortable. Like it's so important. Like people are like they're looking for lightweight, like all this stuff, but actually, if you're not comfortable with shoes, with your clothing, over 100 miles it will become a problem. A very very small problem over 100 miles can become an absolutely race-ending problem. And chafing, it's fun. Like as simple a thing as it is, becomes so painful, and it not only changes how you run, how you feel mentally, it changes how hard everything feels. It means you're less likely to eat, to drink, because you're just all you're doing is thinking about the pain. And even like this like on my finger today, there's this tiny little gap here, right? But it changed how I was holding the handlebars today. It made it less likely for me to eat whilst I was riding the bike because it was harder, because this little tiny sore thing was it. So it's just remembering the knock-on effect it can have over 100 miles and just practice with it. Nothing new on race day. My secret tips, yeah, like just I think it's important to feel like you look good as well. I know that sounds silly, but if you feel confident in how you look on the start line, and they've done some stuff looking at like social identity, like it was actually done with hunter gatherers, where they had like the group that would go out and hunt the seals on the like the pack ice, and they got a special hat when they got up to the big guys. They were the group, and there was a performance benefit to that. They felt that they were in a better place, so they started performing better doing what they were doing. And it's the same with ultra runners, same with cyclists. Like if you feel like you look the part, if you feel like you belong, your confidence goes up and your performance can go up. So I think it's important to think that your outfit, yeah, it's a nice pair of socks, right? Good quality socks. But if they enjoy it, like if you think they look good, it does help as well. But I don't know if what I wear
100%.
looks good.
That's actually a great tip. It's a great tip. Yeah, self-confidence, especially when you go on the long trail, on ultra trail. Yeah, it's important. It's important, yeah, that you're also self-confident. That you don't have doubts, especially
Yeah.
about something like you said. On my last ultra trail, I had my first DNF. Okay, I do run only just like a bit over 1 year, but it was
Mhm.
my first DNF just because, not just because, but I would say like 50% because I took the wrong shoes. And I have now my first time that I have a black toe on my right leg, and it's
Okay.
very annoying. And the whole, after 41 kilometers, I said, okay, now it's enough. And like you said, for like 20 or 25 kilometers, I was just about the pain about my right feet because I was swimming in the shoe. I'm not gonna say which shoe it was, but it was really, I was I was quite angry at myself. I was really angry. I was saying I have like thousands shoes at home, and I had to choose those. And now I have a black toe, actually, a black toe and another black finger. And I really wonder how long this is gonna take now to fix. I
But
guess
this,
a long
but
time.
but remember, right? That also means it can also be a sense of belonging from that. Like people feel like having those black toes means you're a proper ultra run, proper trail runner. Like I got my first black toes when I ran the record in Turin last year. I'd never lost a toenail. And everyone's like, oh, you've never lost a toenail. You're not trying very hard. And you're like, no, and you're 1 year in, you've already got like one black toenail. So you're ahead. Like you're ahead of me.
Okay, but okay, how was your experience with your black toe? I'm a bit scared about this black toe. Okay, I definitely I read a lot about it. I'm not going to the doctor that they're gonna pull it down because no. What did you do? Did
I
What
had
was your
this
experience?
I had the two, and it was in. I had the Nike Alpha Flyer, right? Which is my favorite shoe, probably. And I actually had a new pair, and they must have been made slightly differently, and they both toes went. And I felt it during the race a little bit, and then afterwards, I only saw one as a problem. And I left it on as long as possible because underneath the new nails growing under, and if you take it off too early, there's a risk of infection gets higher because the nail bed is open to dirt and stuff. So I kept it clean. I drained it. If I had to drain it, I drained it. I used like a very fine like needle thing to drain it. I'm not a doctor, by the way. It's just medical advice. Like if you do need to see a doctor, it is worth, or a podiatrist could be worth. But I left it to recover on its own as long as I could. And then when the nail eventually come off, there was already some nail underneath. And the other toe, I didn't realize I had a problem until it fell off, and there was already a new toe underneath. Like it was like 6 months later. I was like, oh, the other toe's come off, and yeah, the toenail had gone off. But you want it to, if it's still on there, let it recover underneath as much as possible, because that's how I've been told in the past. Because it just lowers the risk of infection. If you get an infection in there, that's where you can have big problems.
Did you have any pain?
No, it was
or only in the beginning?
It was sensitive. Pain during the race. It was painful during the race, and it was sensitive afterwards. It's probably like after the race, it was the most difficult. It took my legs recovered and my toe was still quite painful. So yeah, it's just a sensitive area.
I'll wait. I'll wait with it. Okay, Robbie, you're also a coach.
Yes.
Actually, I have to say thank you to Hayden Hawks, because he said he gave me your contact. Then we managed to have this conversation at the moment, this podcast. So thank you, Hayden. What is harder, to coach someone or to coach yourself?
I don't coach myself. I have my own. My coach.
Why not?
Tom Craggs. I can explain why. I think it is to coach yourself. With any coach, like, it should be a partnership. And with me and Tom, my coach, it's a partnership. So like when it comes to 24-hour running, I do know a good amount. Tom, he always makes sure. So we might write the plans together, or like it would be a partnership, but he holds me accountable. So I have to, if I say I want to do this, he's going to ask me why. And then he looks at the plan, and then it's set. And then when I was writing my own plan, I would run to the track and I'd be thinking, oh, maybe I should do more efforts. Maybe I should run faster. Maybe I should reduce the recovery. And now I'm like, no, Tom has seen it. Tom knows it's okay. I trust Tom. It gives me someone to trust, but it takes a lot of pressure away. So even if I write the plan myself, I know that, like, my friend and a trusted coach I have has looked at it and he said, take that weight off your shoulders. You don't need to worry about the plan is good and you can trust in it. Tom's he's a marathon coach as well. So like when we do faster stuff, his workouts, I know they're good. It stops me having to worry about it as much. Coaching yourself, I think as well, as a coach, I learn from Tom. So like, it's, if you're a coach and you haven't got a coach yourself, a little bit, I say, well, would you not trust coaches? Or do you not? How are you coaching other people? If you're an athlete without a coach yourself, do you not think coaching's valuable, but you do it as a job? So I think coaching's valuable, and I have a coach because of that. And I'm fortunate that Tom's a coach who knows more than me. In a lot of areas, but I'm sure he would say the same. We work together. And we have complementary knowledge. I feel like we have different areas of knowledge and expertise, and we work well together. But I learn from him, and it helps me with my athletes. So like it's a good kind of relationship for me. Coaching other people very much depends on the athlete, on how hard it is to coach them. But there's a real mix of stuff, and it's. Sometimes it can be harder, but it can be really satisfying if you work with someone and not only helping them progress as an athlete, but just enjoy the sport more and find the love of training. And there's loads of elements of it that I think I'm really glad that it's my job, it's my career. So like I've done that, a master's in performance coaching, that sports nutrition masters as well. I really kind of dived into the knowledge side of it, but I've been doing it again since it's about 13, 14 years now. So like nearly a decade and a half and before that I used to coach football. So like I was teaching geography and stuff like that in the outdoors. So like I love sharing my love for a sport and love for a subject and my knowledge with other people, and that's a big part of it.
You could not explain that better. Honestly, amazing. Perfect. I have one question for you from one of our listeners, from audience, from Mojca. And she's asking you how to customize the training if you're a little bit sick. So you're not like sick, you don't have fever, but you have cold, you have full nose, I don't know, your throat hurts. So is it better to rest and wait and not running or not doing nothing for 2, 3, 4 days? Or is it better what to do? I know if you have fever, you shouldn't do nothing. But if you don't have fever, what to do then?
So I'll just say that I'm not medically trained, so you have to add that in there. Anecdotally, from working with athletes, I found that if it's a head cold, if it's the sniffles, it's not got down into your chest, take out any intensity and lower the overall stress of your training. Run it, like, go easier, cycle, go for a walk, get outside. If there's anything that's deeper, that you've got a chest or you've got a fever, I found that people who try to train through, it takes longer to recover. The people who take the time to it might just need 2 or 3 days of solid rest, and really, like, make rest your focus. I don't just be like, oh yeah, no, I took a day off running, but I did 9 hours of housework, or I went and did like all my shopping for the week. Like, rest, properly rest. Like, today, and like, oh, I would have been running for an hour, so I'm going to sit down and watch a program for an hour, or I'm going to read a book. I try and rest as much as you can, and make it your focus for those few days. And I think if you really do need to rest, if you've got a chest, it allows you to recover properly, because your body's fighting something. And if you try to train through at that point, you end up 2-3 weeks down the line, still with a bit of illness, still not training properly, probably losing a bit of fitness. But actually, if you'd have taken the 2 or 3 days of proper recovery, a week of easier running, and then maybe you're back training really well, and actually you've lost very little fitness over those 2 or 3 days you took off, but you recovered quickly from your illness. Which, if you try and train through, and even if you just drop it out, and it's hard to tell, because obviously people can have different, you can have COVID, you could have the flu, you could have different illnesses, and there are different things you should be doing. And it is, yeah, I know it's not as simple as like just telling someone to do it. And people do run for their mental health as well, so there is that element to it. It can be hard for people to take time off. So it's just finding that balance, but focus on recovery and respect it when you need to. And I think that will allow you to get back to full training sooner. And if you are continuing to train through, keep it easy. Don't just keep easy. Don't do any kind of intervals, anything like that. Just keep it easy for that time, and then monitor your heart rate, monitor your HRV if you can, if you have been doing it as well. I find HRV, which is heart rate variability, which is on a lot of watches and stuff these days, it's like often it just tells you how you're feeling. You look at it, you go, I know that already. But actually, when you're ill, it can be a good indicator that you might start to feel better, but your heart rate variability is still lower, and it just means respect that recovery a little bit. So I find it's quite a nice external, impact, like an external measure that might give you a bit more information.
How should it be, the heart rate variability?
How should it be? Well, normally develop your own baseline. So like you over the first couple of like weeks or months, you have your own baseline. So some people might be higher, some might be lower. I remember listening to a podcast with Tadej Pogacar, and his was like the numbers he mentioned was really high. I was like, mine's never been that high. And like I was thinking, oh no, that's why I can't win the Tour de France. But actually, like, we got our own baseline. So like I was a little bit unwell recently, and it dropped down to 40. And then it's come back up in the high, the 60s. And for some people, that's low. But for me, from my baseline, that's normally where it sits, and I can try and improve it a little bit. But actually, I knew that like I wanted to see it come back up. And like my resting heart rate, the same. It went up when I was unwell, and it dropped down again. And it just kind of gave me an external measure to saying like, look, wait a minute. Don't rush back. Don't do too much yet. Let your body recover. There's still something going on here. So give it a tiny bit more time. Couple more easy runs, and then you feel better.
For example, what would you do, or what do you do when you're like 5 weeks out? Let's say you are close to your peak week of training.
Okay.
It's Tuesday, and you wake up, don't have fever, so you're not sick. You're somewhere in the between, like we're saying. You should do today intervals. Tomorrow you should do, let's say, some easy run and the gym workout, and let's say on Thursday you should do a long run. But now you decide, okay, I'm gonna rest these 3 days. And on Friday, would you now on Friday do what you wanted to do on Friday, or would you do the Tuesday work?
Well, so there's a few things to consider here, right? So like when you get to Friday, so when you build a training plan, you start from the race date and you go backwards, right? And there's some element of coming forwards as well. But when you get to Friday, some people will start and they'll take Tuesday session, they'll do it on Tuesday. Well, I have to do it. But actually, you're now closer to your race. And it's not many days, but it changes what's the best to do on that day. You're also coming back from an illness. So what I'd probably do is just have a few easy days. I'd finish that week feeling good so that the next week, because I've still got time to do some decent training, like 4 weeks out, 3 weeks out, you're still doing a good volume of training. I'd be focused on being good for those 2 weeks rather than trying to squeeze one extra session in on the Friday. So I might, if the Friday was a rest day and I had 3 days off and I was feeling better, I might change that to an easy run, right? And then the Saturday might have been quite a big volume session and I might do something a little bit less. I say, actually, I do feel good. I want to do a session, but I'm not going to go and do that massive session that was planned because my body's still recovering a little bit. So I would adapt that and I would I know the race is still is 5 weeks away and I've just got a little bit closer, but also that illness is there. So I'm going to respect that and recover from that. I'm going to get to the end of that week in a good place to train well the week after. And it's just kind of thinking there, when you get to 5 weeks out or 4 weeks or 3 weeks out, is what I'm going to do going to help me on race day or hinder me? And when you get to like training through an illness, if you're 2 or 3 weeks out and you think, actually, I could get 1% more, 0.1% fitter if I do these sessions. But if I train when I'm ill and then carry that illness into my taper, into my race week, it can have a massive impact on your race. It's just kind of looking at what's the kind of, the main thing is performing on race day. So what is going to be the best thing for me on that? And as you get closer, that might be that actually I'm going to take a couple of days rest because it's not going to make a big difference to my performance. But if I get to the start line with still ill, that will have a big impact. So then it changes what your priorities are around, like, as the race gets closer.
See, that's another great tip. You can see you have lots of experience. Really nice. And also how you explain it, it's like, yeah, it's logical. Duh, of course. Very nice. Very cool.
But you have to be able to explain your decision makings to the athlete, because like a coach, I think they used to say it's like transactional. Like, I tell you what to do, you do it. And for me, that's not how I like to. There's 2 things around leadership. You've got transactional leadership and transformational leadership. And like, I like to try and educate as to why I'm suggesting something, because if I tell someone to do something and they do it, their motivation to do it comes from me telling them, right? And that's it. If I explain why you should do something and then you say, oh, that makes sense. Okay. Your motivation to do that is higher. Your likelihood to do it is higher. And then when you get to like the race, like, also, like, after the whole block of training, your knowledge is higher. And then over time, maybe you outgrow that coach, or maybe you don't feel like you need the coach anymore. I still feel like there's a place for coaches. I'm not worried about that. But like, it's if I coach in a way that is going to push my knowledge onto the people that I work with, then that's how I like to do it. I like to then it comes to it. Then maybe it's a Tuesday, you wake up in the morning and you're running before work, right? It's 5 a.m. or something like that. And you can't message me to ask that decision. But because the last time we discussed it and we explained why, you then are in a better place to make the right decision on your own. And then as you get to ultras like this, it becomes more important in ultra marathons, because over the course of 100-miler, the UTMB, the Leadville, any of these races, most of the important decisions are made by the athlete. So if a coach is telling them what to do all the time, by the time they get to the most important decision, how hard to push, what to eat, what to drink, whether to keep their head up, or what they need to do at that key moment in a race, they're on their own and they have to make that decision themselves. So part of the training is helping an athlete make good decisions throughout the year. So when it comes to that key moment in a race, they make a better decision there.
I just got in my mind now one question. I didn't have this question written before, but for example, I know there's quite lots of guys and also girls who are listening to this podcast, and they are really, really good. But if they would decide that their goal is to come on UTMB on the podium or on some of these super huge trails, which is like UTMB or like Leadville or Western States or Hard Rock 100 or Lavaredo, or there's so many different ones which are like, the competition is just through the roof. How much does it cost if they contact you and you become a coach? Is this even possible, or you are like full, or are you still taking clients? And how much, like, per month does this cost?
So my fees now are up to £250 a month, which I think in euros is, I have to check what it is in
Around
euros.
350 euros.
At the moment, I don't really have the capacity for new people. That said, like if someone's really exciting and they message, like I find it hard to, like I love helping people. When you get people that get in contact, you're like, okay, there's room for one more person, and then you find yourself in trouble. I don't want to get it to a point where I coach too many people that I'm not doing a good job coaching the people I work with. And it's not, for me, it's not about the money. The money is obviously nice. The price has gone up over the years to kind of to show that, I mean, that I've spent lots of money on qualifications, on my own research and stuff like that. So yeah, that you can. So I work with the good thing is I work with a team of coaches at Centurion Running. So we've got Aidan's one of our coaches, well as now Dr. Jamie Pugh, Julia Davis, Sophie Grant. Sophie's actually been top 10 at Lavaredo a couple of times. Sarah Cameron is one of our coaches. She's one of our 24-hour runners in the past. We've got a really great team of coaches that I work with. So even today, I spoke to one of our coaches about one of their athletes. So I support a team of coaches that can hopefully help other people. So like if they are interested in working with me and like the ideas that they've heard on this podcast, centurionrunning.com. We've got a coaching site there, and whilst I'm on that, and the other coaches, there's different prices as well. So like the most of the coaches are 150, so about 180, 200 euros a month. And yeah, you've got a whole lot of people that have been to some of the biggest races in the world. We've got people like Tour de France finishers. We've got 24-hour runners, Lavaredo, like all the big races. And yeah, with athletes that have done well at them and coaches that have helped other people complete well at these races. So yeah, it's like, I think the most important thing when you're if you're thinking about coaching is think about what you want to get out of that, and find the right coach for you. Take some time. I'm not suggesting that the coaches that I work with are the right ones for you. Have a look into the people that they've worked with in the past. Don't just look at the results of the fast people they work with, because one of my favorite quotes at the moment: it takes a very bad coach to get in the way of a very good athlete. My mum could coach Hayden Hawks and he would still get very good results. He might not get like the big results, right? But he would still be quite fast. And you'd be like, oh, Robbie's mum's coach. So no, Hayden's just very fast. But look for the relationships they have, and they coaches that work with people for numbers of years is always a good sign. And don't be afraid to reach out and speak to coaches and ask them, like, why do you think we'll be a good fit? Because I think that's important, because like some of I've worked with some of my athletes for over 10 years. Average time is probably, it's like 5, 6, 7 years. I coach a lot of coaches as well. So more than half the people I coach are coaches themselves. So I have to make sure I know what I'm doing. But like, I think having a coach is great. I really enjoy, I think it really benefits my training, and my enjoyment of the sport. But yeah, I think it's a decision worth thinking about. Like we have podcasts of all of our coaches where we've interviewed and gone through their running and coaching history. To do your research. But yeah, so there's a lot of good advice out there. If you're interested in more information from me, there is that book out there which has got some good advice in. Like it's based at all levels, and there's some good humor in there as well. I think you have to make things fun. So
is it book in PDF or is it in physical?
There's a physical and there's a Kindle, like there's an ebook version as well. So you can get it on as an ebook. The publisher's Vertebrate Publishing. But yeah, 1001. There's a copy of it somewhere around it.
I saw on your Instagram. Yeah, I'll try to find the link then, and then also put it in the description. I have one more question from Armin. He is interested. Is it important how much carbs you take during the race? Is this correlated with your body weight, or is it like general 90 to 110 grams per hour?
It's a good question. It's a good question. They've looked at, so look at someone shared it with me recently. They looked at the carbohydrate oxidation, and it was impacted by body size and body weight, and there was some correlation there. What I would say is that I think it's very individual. So what I would say to anyone who's looking to increase the amount of carbohydrates they're taking on as a runner is to first look at what they've done in the past. So like people I need to get 90 grams an hour, and they look at their last race and they've averaged 20. And if you go from 20 grams an hour to 90, the chances are you may crap your pants or you may be sick. Right. So what I would say is look at what you've done in the past, practice, build it up, and then find what you've got a tolerance for. They've shown that you can train the gut, right? So that's part of it, especially in the 3 or 4 weeks before the race, your long runs, your interval, like your harder workout, practice with your nutrition. I think I've got athletes who will take 110, 120 grams of carbs an hour, right? There aren't many facts. There isn't much stuff out there that show that the body's utilizing that still at this stage, but they're having good performances and it's correlating with a high amount of carbohydrates they're getting in. We had one lady who we tested a lady called Sarah Webster. She came into the laboratory with Jamie up in John Moores, and she was running the 100K. So she ended up running 7:04. She's done it twice now, 100 kilometers. And she was taking on 90 grams of carbs an hour, and her body wasn't using it. It was actually just needing it. It's only using 60 grams of that per hour at her race paces. And we actually advised her to reduce the amount of carbs she was taking in. And then she went on to set what was then a European record for 100 kilometers. So it's very individual. Find out what works for you in the past. Try and improve it. If you feel like the second half of your race, you haven't got enough energy, great, then that's what you need to mix. But the other side of energy and the energy balance in an ultra marathon is also your pace and your effort. So it's not always, okay, I want to go faster, so I'm going to put more food in. Actually slowing down a little bit and using a little bit less energy in the first half whilst trying to increase the amount of you're taking in and you can tolerate is going to be beneficial to get you to the finish line quicker. Because running an ultra marathon, it's not running fast isn't always the best way to get to the finish line first. You've got to be consistent for the whole race.
Is it also like, for example, if you run 100K or 100 mile, that it varies from hour to hour, that maybe you start with 90 grams and then, I don't know, later on you just use 60 grams or maybe 110 grams, or it has to be each hour the same 90 grams?
No, you can mix it up. I think it'd be very hard to keep it set the whole way. So like when you're starting the race, you've obviously got full muscle glycogen stores, so you've got more energy available. And as you go over the course of the race, one, you're probably going to slow a little bit anyway. So your energy demands might drop a little bit. Depends on the length of the race. Your tolerance for that food might go. You might get dehydrated. You might be hotter. So therefore your body struggles a little bit with digestion. So I try and keep it consistently. And actually the last 2 24-hour races, the last 6 hours, I've increased the amount of energy I'm taking on. It's just because I am running, I'm getting 18 hours in, I'm getting to a point where I'm empty, and I might take 100, 120 grams an hour because the precision hydration 90 gels are so easy to get in. I might take a full one of them, and then before the hour's out, I might have an extra snack and a drink, and then I'm eating like 120. So the last 6 hours at the World Champs, I was 120 grams an hour. And the last 6 hours when I broke the British record, which has now been beaten, was over 110, 115 an hour. So it just depends. Like some people they get sick of it, and there's a massive psychological element to nutrition as well. You say, I couldn't eat in the second half of the race. You say, why? I just didn't want to. So, but you wanted to finish, right? You wanted to run well. Yeah, we really wanted to. Put so much effort into, so put the same effort that you put into your feet into eating, and then it's easier to run fast. But psychologically, we're used to, I didn't want to eat that, so I stopped, and I'll go to the shops and get something different. And then we're running, we've just got these gels. But if you can get your mind around it, you're like, right, okay, I don't want to eat this, but can I? And if the answer is yes, I can eat it without being sick, then yep, really work at it, get that down, and then carry on. Because it's going to be, we put a lot of our psychological energy into the running part of it, but actually we put a bit of that into nutrition, it makes the running easier.
Very nice. Cool. So actually you have to also listen to the body, and if you ask yourself, if you can eat, even if you don't want to, but if you can, then you should.
Most of the time, yes.
Cool. That's good. I'm going to remember that next time. I have next run in a month and a half, which is also going to be, it's like on the 4th of January. So for the Christmas, that's not going to be lots of eating and drinking. So it's going to be more training. What is your next trail race?
Trail race? Oh, I don't know. My next running race, I am currently the reserve for the British team for the World 100K Champs in India. That's in 3 weeks' time. Probably not going to be running now. I hope I'm not, because I don't want anyone to be injured. But I'm the substitute.
But do you go there anyways?
No, I won't because the flights are quite expensive. So they'll hopefully this week I'll know whether or not I'm running or not. So, but the next trail race, there's one called the Winter Brick Trail, which is near us, which is quite good. It's in February. It's like a local. It's a 23 and a 40K, and we've got like a really good level of competition here.
Did you run already Snowdonia? Isn't Snowdonia also in UK or
So it's
Scotland?
like in the UK. My wife went there to run it last year. It's like I like Snowdonia. It's beautiful. I don't really, the races there don't appeal to me too much. The 50K maybe it's a bit faster. I went to do the 100 Hills 50K, which is another smaller event, but run by Centurion. And I made a mistake with my nutrition, so I do want to go back there and maybe do that again. But yeah, I don't have plans. The World 24-hour Championships next year, that's my main goal. So everything will build
Which
back.
one?
Yeah.
A World 24-hour run.
Yes, the World 24-hour Championships. So that's in October next year in Albi, France. So that's my primary focus. So what I will do is build back from there. And there's the Ultra Vassan in Sweden is one I want to do, which is in August. So I'm going to look to try and fit that in, but make sure it's not too close. And then the first half of the year is still undecided. But there's some cool races like Transgran Canaria. Like that's a cool event. Madeira Ultra Trail Mount Fuji. Like there's so many cool races out there that I want to go and do. So it's just maybe doing one or two a year like Leadville's tick. It's done. We've done it. I've done that wonderful race. Now where's the next one that's cool?
What about World Championship in trail race next year?
So that's in the end of September at Canfranc. It's too close to the 24 hours. So I like trail running. The British team's really strong. I've tried to get on the British team before and I haven't been able to. I think for me, if I had the best season ever and I trained really hard and I got in the British team, I would be really, really happy to make the top 10. It'd be like my top chance, right? I'd probably more likely be top 20. Whereas the 24 hours, if I have the perfect training season and I have the perfect race, there's a chance I can win. So it's just, I'm slightly better at the 24 hour than I am the trail. That's part of the reason it draws me to do it. I love it. It does, obviously I didn't sell it as a very enjoyable thing, but I do love the sport. It's just pure. You have to suffer. You have to keep working. We're in a team. We have a team score as well. So last year we were third team in the world and I want to go back. In 2015, we won the gold. I really want to win the gold with my team. So I've got some great teammates that are friends that I've run with for years and years. So I'm good at it. You don't choose what you're good at that often, do you? So I know I'm good at 24-hour running. I don't know if it's the head or the body, but I'm a better road runner than I am trail. I'm not bad on the trail, but I'm not world class. So I'm happy with that.
I can see. Actually, I can hear where your heart is. What about the road marathon? Marathon, you're not so much about.
No, I like it. I like
marathons,
the road marathon. I like the training for it as well because the training can be quite it's more formulaic, like how you train for a marathon. There's more set ways to do it. There's very good feedback. Like if training's going well for the road marathon, because the numbers are there. But it's different to the trail. So last 2 years ago, I was training for Milan Marathon. In the last minute, I ran a 50K instead because there was a chance to get on the British team. So I went through the marathon in 2:26 in that and ran 2:57 for the 50K. I would like to. The thing is, if I'm really fit, I want to go and run a long race, an ultra marathon. So my coach thinks we were near around the 2:20s earlier this year when I was running 100K, which was great. It's all well and good to say that. I may have gone to race and run 2:35, but I think if I was going to do another block of training aimed at the marathon, I'd be aiming to try and break 2:20. I don't know if I could.
Wait, for 2:26. For 2:26, what has to be your pace?
I think it's like 5:35. So in K's, I want to say 3:30, but I can check.
3:30.
You might be wrong.
For 42 kilometers. Crazy. Last year I went to my first marathon and I did some sprints also. And my sprint for 300 meters was 3:30.
Yeah, I mean, so was mine. When I started out, it's this kind of, you do progress. It's still kind of, you kind of get past and you extend that. Yeah, like 3:30 is 2:28. So like I ran 2:29 in Valencia a few, like 5-6 years ago, which is
Crazy.
3:30. If I
That's just
was
crazy.
go again, my goal would be to run 3:20 a K.
Nice. That's crazy.
It's
Okay,
easy
now
to.
I only have few, let's say, trivia questions for you
Okay,
that
then I
don't
answer
take
those.
more time because I think we can still talk for like 2 hours. But what do you like more, night run or day run?
I like the night because it feels a bit more special. When you run somewhere in the night, it's different because you get there and it feels like you've done a little bit extra to get there. I especially like cycling in the night because you cycle through a town in the night, it's totally different and there's no one around and it feels like everything feels like an adventure when you do it in the dark.
Which headlamp do you use?
I've got a Petzl now and a night core one I've been testing. It's actually like both. I used the night core for the last race I did, and for Leadville I used a Black Diamond. So it's just a mixture.
The mixture. Okay, downhill or uphill?
Uphill. Wow, I love uphill. Especially, yeah. I love both, but I do like running uphill.
Pacer or no pacer?
If it's in the rules, I'll have a pacer because I think they can help. But if I pick a race, I'll pick on without a pacer because then it's just me versus the other man.
Hunting or leading?
Hunting every time.
Intervals or long runs?
Long runs with intervals in them.
Good answer. Mornings or evenings?
Mornings.
Mountains or seaside?
Mountains.
Sleep or food?
Food.
Coffee or tea?
I've had both today. I am British, but I live in Italy, so you have to do coffee if I had to choose one.
Meat or vegetables?
I'm vegetarian, so vegetables.
Steam room or cold plunge?
Sauna, yeah, I got the sauna here at home. I like a cold, but I like the adventure of a cold plunge in the middle of a river in the middle of nowhere, but I don't have one at the house.
Christmas or Halloween?
Christmas because it's about family. Halloween's
Horror
my
movies or comedy?
call for me there.
Sorry, what?
Halloween is my mother's birthday, so it's a complicated question.
Horror movies or comedy?
Comedy, I'm not good with horror.
Basketball or football?
Football,
Swimming or cycling?
cycling,
Cycling.
100%.
So thank you very much, Robbie, for your time. We are like 1 hour and a half already in the conversation.
Yeah.
I took a bit more time than I said that I will take from you, so I apologize for that.
It's okay. I've got to go out and have dinner now. So if my wife's angry, I'm going to send her your number.
Good. Have a great time and see you on the trails.
So yeah, brilliant. Thanks for having me. And hopefully I'll see you in Slovenia. Or if you're in Italy, come and run with us here.
100%.
Cool.
All right, bye-bye, ciao.
Bye. Ciao.